Tensura. Of bonds and demon lords by Ryagful. Passing through the portal itself was nothing special. 1 second, he was in his office in Tempest, the next he found himself in a large circular room that had no other entrance or exit but the portal he stepped through along with Xian. At the center of the room was a large round table with several throne-like chairs, and sitting right on the other side from where he entered was a man. At least he was pretty sure it was a man, as he had androgynous features that were not quite male and not quite female, with long, blood-red hair and piercing red eyes. And his aura was out of this world. That man. Though as he took a good look at his aura, something isn't right. He's trying to disguise himself as someone who can't control his aura, but it's just a ruse. Anyone who can't properly realize that would fail immediately. He thought in realization, there's no way to tell just how powerful he really is.
Hey guy. Ramirez suddenly buzzed by. Long time no see, she said as she flew over to the man, who ignored her and continued to stare at Rimuru.
So that's Guy Crimson. Though as he stared back. After a while, the demon lord closed his eyes and seemed to lose interest in the staring contest. Instead, he spoke up. Why don't you take a seat? If you keep blocking the door, you might get trampled on, he said with a light smile. He was about to ask what he meant when he heard loud footsteps behind him. Turning around, he saw a massive man, nearly 3 meters tall, stepping through the portal. He was so big, he had to duck his head to fit through. Hey, little guy. He said in a surprisingly gentle voice. Would you mind moving aside? He asked politely. Ah, sorry. Rimuru said as he moved out of the way. As he looked at the newcomer move over to sit in one of the chairs, he realized he must be the king of giants, Dragonoid. His aura, too, was immense, and he made no attempt to hide it. Deciding to stop blocking the portal, he moved to sit in the chair directly opposite from Guy. As he was sitting, he felt more people entering and turned to look. There were 3 of them, a man in a large black cape, an old man that looked like a butler and a maid. Their protruding fangs told him they must be vampires, the caped one leading them being the one named Valentine. His aura is nothing to scoff at, but, though as he ran his eyes over them, settling on the maid, her aura is. It's hard to tell, but is it actually larger than his? Affirmative. Raphael quickly answered within the estimated range. The maid's magicules are higher than the current demon lord, she said. Rimuru though over the reasons why, even considering she may be that old demon lord who retired, and who, apparently, Veldora had once fought with, ending in destroying her city. However, he dismissed it. There was no way someone powerful enough to leave an impression on Veldora would just submit themselves as a maid to someone else. There had to be a much simpler explanation. In any case, a sound brought his attention to the portal again. A young-looking man with simple robes and a cape walked in, yawning. What's with this dude? He wondered. He had 2 swords at the hip and light blue hair with a single purple streak in it. And more importantly, his aura seemed quite large. The man walked by, utterly uninterested, and went to sit in a chair near Ramirez. Yo, Ramirez, he said with a wave when he saw her. Are you smaller than the last time I saw you? He asked with a lazy smile. Are you trying to pick a fight with me, Dino? Ramirez yelled angry. What'd be the point? I'd flatten you. He dismissed her, which only got her angrier. Why you? And started threatening him, but he sure as hell was not taking it serious. But then he took a look at Ramirez's attendants, Beretta and Trainee, and began freaking out. What the hell? How do you have 2 servants tagging along? He screamed as he pointed at the 2, while Ramirez took on a very smug look. You're making me look like a total dweeb for showing up alone. Ha 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 ha. Ramirez laughed. That's right, fool. Tremble before their tremendous power. Rimuru wanted to tell her badly that even together the 2 were no match with Dino, at least from the cursory aura he was picking up, but decided to stay out of it. Let her dig her own grave for all he cared. Wah, and I though you were a fellow loner, anyways, can I smash him apart? He casually asked. No, Ramirez screamed, I'll tell you on Guy if you do that. Rimuru looked at the demon in question, who was making to attempt to hide his eyes rolling. Rimuru decided to tune the 2 out. They were certainly too much trouble. After a few more back and forth, Dino sat down next to Valentine and promptly curled up his head in his arms on the table, seemingly asleep. However, He wasn't, as Rimuru quickly discovered when he tried to pry a little too hard and Dino sent him a glare. Rimuru quickly pretended to look somewhere else. More people walked through the portal, drawing his attention. In walked 3 people. 2 harpies and a large man with a lion mask. This must be the harpy queen, Frey. Whoa, Rimuru though as he took a good look at her. She was without a doubt one of the most gorgeous women he had ever seen, especially in the... No, bad Rimuru. Bad Rimuru. He quickly kicked himself mentally. You were committed. Remember? Remember? Arg, this is bad. So bad? The kicks turned into an outright mental fistfight as he tried very hard not to ignore the harpy's many curves. Lord Rimuru. He heard Xian whisper to him, "Ah, this is super bad." He though as he turned to her, "If she can tell what I'm thinking and tells a certain someone, I'm doomed." He began contemplating his sad fate if it got out, however. Doesn't that male attendant bother you, somehow? Thankfully, Xian didn't seem to notice his previous thoughts, or look, directed at Frey. Thanking his lucky stars he was spared, he put away his previous thoughts and looked at the lion-masked man. Ah, he certainly does. He seems pretty strong, but compared to the others gathered here it's pretty meh. He though, however. His aura strikes me as familiar. He though about the people that he may have met, and realized only a few met the man's likeness. The one that fit the best, however, he dismissed as unlikely even as Raphael said it. Sigh he though he could hear her blow a sigh, but he ignored the two. In any case, the portal opened again. Through it walked a single man, a tall, young-looking man with platinum blonde hair. His face immediately tired up an image within him, though he quickly realized it was not from his own memories, but from Shizu's. This man. He though with anger, must be Leon Cromwell. As the demon lord passed through the door and stopped, he and Rimuru locked eyes. Leon too seemed to contemplate something before speaking. So, are you Rimuru? He asked in an even tone. Yes. Rimuru answered as he stood up to look at him. Did you need something? He asked back. Leon seemed to hesitate for a few seconds before he spoke again. No, your face just brought up some memories, he said. Rimuru looked at him with some contempt. Were those memories involve Shizu, by any chance? He asked. Leon didn't answer and just looked with mild surprise. So you do remember her? Rimuru said as he walked closer. I don't have to punch you until you do. He said as he looked up at him. She's dead, you know. I know. Leon said as he moved away. She died as she wanted, as a human. He continued as he sat down in a chair next to the one Rimuru had sat. If she had accepted Ifrit and became a Majin, she would have lived. But she didn't. Rimuru continued to look at him and said nothing, taking in his words. Well, I didn't get to see her final moments, so what do I know? Is that all you have to say? Rimuru asked eventually. Yes. Leon answered, that's all. Well, I am just a bit interested in you, so. If you still have something against me, I can invite you over to my castle. We can talk or fight then, if you so wish. He offered. Rimuru thought it over and decided that settling Shizu's score with Leon could wait for another time. Fine, Rimuru said with a sigh and moved to sit down. I'll take you up on your offer some other time. Well, that is. Leon said as the portal behind them began opening again, if you leave here alive. 2 people walked in. One was a tall, lean man dressed in an all-white, expensive-looking suit, carrying what looked like a fox in his arms. The other was Milam, wearing her usual skimpy outfit and a large black cape. Rimuru had to hastily get out of his seat when he saw her, barely containing himself from just rushing over to her to see how she was. Milam. He called her name out loud without realizing. He didn't realize he was also smiling like an idiot, though thankfully for him neither Leon or Frey, who were the only ones at the table who could see it, said anything. He sure seems happy to see her. Leon though as he watched him, maybe Guy was right. Hey. Frey mentally chucked as she took note of his reaction, then looked over to Milam. I bet she's not much better. Is that some red I see on her ears? Dear me. She had to suppress the urge to smile. Oh thank God. Rimuru though with relief as he watched her walk into the room. She looks alright, at least. But that blank stare, is that guy next to her putting on airs? Clayman, then. When they got a bit closer, though, suddenly Clayman looked down at Milam in contempt and, with no warning slapped her over the head. Move quicker, you dullard, he shouted. Any trace of a smile instantly evaporated from Rimuru's face.
A deep tension set over the room as every single person turned to look at Milam. Some, like Valentine, had a terrified look, as if expecting the Dragonoid to fly into a rage and kill everything in sight. Others, like Ramirez and Xian, had to cover their mouth in shock, concern written all over their face. Most, like Guy, Dagruel and Dino kept a blank expression, though they too expected her to flip off and kill the dumb small fry on the spot, in a very messy fashion. Nothing happened though, as she just continued to move past Rimuru.
Rimuru could see nothing but red. A burning anger that he never knew he was capable of suddenly made its way to the surface, and he could feel the lid he put on his aura break. His aura flared up, startling everyone in the room with its intensity. Everyone except Clayman, who seemed incapable of or unwilling to comprehend. That scumbag. He could feel his body tremble. That packing scumbag piece of shit. He didn't care about hiding his aura or true intentions free anymore. The only thing on his mind right then was Clayman's death, and nothing else whatsoever. His body began to move automatically, taking a step forward, but then he suddenly went stiff. What the hell? Raphael, he screamed as he wondered what happened. Notice. Emergency override. Please calm down, Master, she said, a hint of worry in her normally robotic voice. You did this? Why? He screamed at her to explain. Report. My only desire is Master's safety. You have tasked me with looking out for your best interests. If you do not calm down at this time, chances are you will do something against those best interests, she explained. He gritted his teeth. Calm down. He repeated. How could I calm down after seeing this filth hit Milam like that? How? Report. Milam should be fine, Master. Individual Clayman's aura is nowhere near enough to cause harm to her, she said, though he could feel some anger coming from her as well. Directed at Clayman. You have decided to go through with this meeting. If you do something rash now, I cannot predict the outcome. She said that, but he could hardly accept it. His anger did not subside much, just barely enough that he understood what she was saying. Even so, it didn't mean he liked it at all. But, thanks to Raphael using the acceleration on him, what was a second in real time was a few minutes for him. Enough to allow the burning rage to subside and turn into a cold, calculated anger. Still trembling, he finally felt Raphael release whatever she did. He regained enough control that he didn't slaughter Clayman on the spot like he wanted. All right, Raphael, he said, fist clenched. I'll calm down. But do not ever do that again, he said as stared at Clayman with contempt. The man seemed to have finally taken notice of him, having stopped next to one of the chairs next to his, looking down at him as if he was but an insect. No worries, Master, Raphael said to him, a hint of something in her voice he couldn't quite place. He will get what he deserves, she declared. The people around the room of course took note of the unrestrained anger Rimuru had shown at Clayman's act. Guy stared at him, face only partially visible as he looked up at Clayman. Oh ho ho. Interesting, indeed. He thought with a small grin. What beautiful rage. No wonder Milam is so enamored with him. He had to suppress a laugh. Oh, this is indeed going to be a fun banquet. His grin widened. Scratch everything I said before, Leon thought, face still emotionless as he stared at Rimuru. Guy was definitely right. Only explanation for that reaction, he turned away. Well, nothing that concerns me, unless he comes with Milam in tow when I invite him to my castle. A flash of panic was barely visible in his eyes, then I'd be packed. Oh, Clayman, you poor, oblivious scumbag. Frey though, just barely able to suppress her glee and horror at how powerful this Rimuru actually was compared with Clayman, doing that here, of all places, right in front of him. What a sad and pathetic attempt to assert yourself. You are already dead. You are not leaving here alive. She looked at Rimuru as he trembled with barely restrained rage. He will make you suffer. I no longer have any interest in you whatsoever. She dismissed and put any concern she had away. All the waiting and gritting with Clayman's demands were done. She looked over to Milam as she approached the other chair next to Guy. Milam, I kinda envy you, you know, you found someone very special. After a few seconds, Rimuru finally broke eye contact with Clayman and turned to look at Milam. She had made her way next to Guy and sat down in the chair, almost robotically. He couldn't make out what she was thinking as her expression remained blank and she angled her head so that her eyes were covered by her bangs. He noticed Guy and Ramirez looking over at her too. Ramirez was definitely concerned, but Guy was hard to read. In any case, his only concern was Milam. "What are you thinking?" He wanted to ask her aloud. "Are you really controlled? At least look at me. Please?" He mentally pleaded, but nothing came of it. Fists clenched, he eventually sat down on his chair, a bit too forcefully, and waited for this charade to start. Finally, Clayman, who was still looking at him dismissively, began the meeting. "Your death will not be a pleasant one, Clayman," Rimuru thought. Now, let us go back in time a bit for Milam's perspective. As she walked in besides Clayman into the room, of course the very first thing she noticed was Rimuru, standing there in a black outfit with a warm smile on his face, directed at her. She thanked her lucky stars that she had thought to eat that stupid pepper to help keep her face blank, because otherwise her thoughts would be way too obvious. Oh God, she mentally panicked. "Don't go smiling like that at me after so long, God ain't it. How am I supposed to keep up this act like this?" Even despite her best efforts, she could feel her ears heat up and her chest felt like it could explode any second from the pressure. Despite avoiding eye contact, she could tell quite well some things were different about Rimuru than before. Is he taller than me now? She realized. Are you kidding me? That's not fair at all, she complained, but wasn't too upset. In fact, though, he does look kinda, age. Hot. Ah, I said it. Thankfully, her blank expression didn't falter. Suddenly, the atmosphere in the room changed, and everyone looked at her in concern. What's that about? She had, in fact, literary barley even register Clayman hitting her. It was like an insect sitting on a dragon. Not even so much as an itch, and just as quickly dismissed. She heard the dumbass besides her telling her to move faster, though she ignored him and continued to walk at her own pace. Suddenly, she felt Rimuru's aura flaring up, a look of unrestrained anger written all over his face, all of it directed at an oblivious Clayman. Wah! She was surprised to see just how much he had grown, easily putting him on par with Dino or Valentine, the real one, not that pretend demon lord. Cool, she thought as she admired his aura. It had quite the unique property to it, beautiful in a way she had never seen before. Despite the anger seeping into it, it had a vibrant and warm feeling. As he continued to direct his rage at Clayman, and looking like he had barely stopped himself from killing him on the spot, she had a realization. Wait. Is he angry about Clayman trying to hit me? He's that angry. For me? She could feel her ears heat up even more, and was fairly certain her face started to betray her too. Oh no, this is way too much. I can't deal with this. She panicked. Calm down. Just think bad thoughts, yeah. That'll make it better, worse. A memory of a dead dragon flashed by, allowing her to regain control over her expressions before she blew her act up. She didn't like remembering, but it was better than blowing it here after putting in all the effort she already did. Okay, just sit down and wait. It's almost over, she thought as she got to her seat and sat down. She could still feel several people stare at her, including Guy and Ramirez. She really hoped they didn't realize she was faking it. Well, she was fairly certain Ramirez was too oblivious right now in her child form, but Guy. Pack, he definitely knows, she realized as she felt his gaze on her. Son of a bitch, at least it doesn't look like he'll screw me over. She could also feel Rimuru look over at her with concern. Don't. She wanted to say, don't look at me like that. She pleaded. Eventually, Rimuru looked away, and she had to unclench her fists, which she didn't even realize she was doing until then. Hoping no one noticed or at least Clayman didn't she listen to the scumbag start his dumb meeting. It was finally time to end this. I would like to express my sincere gratitude for all PFU for coming here today, Clayman said in a grandiose way. No one seemed to care, though. Shall we begin? This Demon Lord banquet. At the same time, the battle against Clayman's forces was beginning. Or rather, it was hardly a battle. Everything is in place, Benimaru said from his vantage point. He turned to look at his adjutants in this war, Albus of the Beastketeers, Geld and Gabiru, the ones who had the most experience in outright warfare. They all nodded and on his signal went off to see to their part, except for Albus. He looked over the barren landscape. In the distance were numerous lights from Clayman's soldiers, marching to their doom. This was not, in fact, Eurysania, but Orcus, the former Orc lands, still devastated by the harsh drought that brought about their famine. It was Geld's idea to lure the enemy here after evacuating the people of Eurysania. They had some beastmen warriors dress up as civilians and pretend to run north, into Orcus, as refugees fleeing the incoming army. They even had a Majin pretend to be a merchant. He encountered the marching army and informed their commander, who was bewildered at the absence of anyone in the villages he came upon, about the beatsmen fleeing from them north. The commander was so thankful, he even spared the Majin who had volunteered and was ready to die if need be. And so, Commander Yamza, the middle finger of Clayman, marched north into Orcus to slaughter the fleeing beastmen. Of course, the beastmen allowed them just enough of a glimpse to keep them following. Right into the canyon they set up an ambush. So, Benimaru though, this would not be a battle, it would be a one-sided victory. They had already made their first move. Somewhere else, the base camp of Yamza's command staff, there was confusion. What the hell is going on? He shouted as he looked over a map of the area. The beastmen just vanished. There should be thousands of them here, no way that many women and children would make it further in such a short time. He reasoned to himself. In fact, the entire canyon seemed empty of life except for his own men searching behind every rock. So far, there had been nothing, not so much as a beastman corpse. What's going on? Nothing. Don't understand. Lord Clayman will be pissed, he shuddered. No one who disappointed the puppet master had an enviable fate. Becoming another slave was considered a lucky fate. Sir Yamza. A man interrupted his thoughts as he entered the tent. He was carrying a wounded soldier with him. It seems this soldier was ambushed after he found some beastmen, he reported. Yamza looked over at the wounded soldier. Hey, who attacked you? Was it the beastmen? However, it was futile. The wounded man slipped his grip on the other one, and fell to the ground, dead. Yamza looked at the corpse. It had a knife still stuck in his back. He pulled it out and looked it over. Damn it, were they beastmen warriors who escaped to Tempest? No way they could get back here in time, he thought. A sudden commotion was heard from outside. He quickly ran out of the tent to see several heavily armored orcs fighting a contingent of troops near the entrance to one of the many side canyons that led from the valley he was in. Hi orcs. What? He wondered, confused. Suddenly, the battle died down as the orcs retreated despite doing quite well. He realized it was probably a trap, and so did the Majin in charge of the troops, who shouted at them to be wary. However, it was futile. Geld, do it. Benimaru gave the orc the order through telepathy. Understood. The orc said. He stomped onto the ground, using his earth manipulation skill. Suddenly, the ground right below the contingent of enemy troops gave in, forming a large sinkhole that they had no way of avoiding. Most of them became tangled with each other, unable to move. A few managed to grab onto the edge as they fell, but the orcs quickly cut them down with no mercy. A few other Majin soldiers had the ability to fly and, sensing imminent danger, managed to get airborne just in time. However, they were immediately beset by a fast-moving squadron of dragon newts led by Gabaru and were killed within seconds. How unfortunate, Gabaru said as he looked at them falling into the sinkhole. Had you just fallen, you may have spared yourself more suffering, and flew off to find more prey. Looks like we're almost wrapped up. Benimaru said as he looked over the scene, knowing that many other such were playing all across the canyon. Reports were coming in as his ambush squadrons were neutralizing the enemy at a frighteningly fast pace. This has been an excellent display of leadership, Sir Benimaru. Albus said, I doubt someone like me could have done this well. Our victory was a matter of course, but let's not let our guard down. Now then. He turned to her, did you want something? She smiled, yes. I wished for me and my companions. She motioned to the other Beatsketeers to join the battle, she said. If Lord Carrion hears that we slacked off, he'll be mad, Phobio said with a grimace. Benimaru looked over his companions and smiled. They had previously been mostly equal, but had talked him into taking full command of all their forces. So that's why. He said aloud, smiling a bit, very well. I wasn't planning to hold you back anyway. Go wild as you please. He told them, then turned to look at the unfolding battle. The three went their separate ways to find their own battles.
He continued to monitor the battle, and took a special note of Albus, who quickly went down to confront the enemy commander in person. He smirked at that. The poor bastard was in for an even rougher day. Somewhere in the real, a dragon faithful was looking over the unfolding battle with Dragon's Eye, albeit a much downgraded form compared to their master. Yikes, Hermes said as he looked at the unfolding disaster, it looks like they got completely routed. HMPH, weaklings. Midray said, not even bothering to look, total weaklings. Yamza, you bastard, you drag us into this mess and you are this weak. Pathetic, he shouted with unchecked contempt.
Well, even if he wasn't weak, it wouldn't have mattered. They got completely ambushed. The other side just had better strategy. As expected of Lady Milam's friend. He said, but it only seemed to drive Midray even madder. Dumbass. He shouted, taking down underhanded tactics like this just takes more force. Hermes didn't look impressed by the high priest. No, not really. He said with a deadpan expression. Especially when the enemy themselves seems pretty strong. He told him, though I wonder how Tempest got here so quickly.
I wonder too. Midray said with sudden clarity, well, I should expect nothing less from Lady Milam's personal friend. Of course Sir Rimmeru's forces would prevail. Ah, I wish I could test them myself. He then grinned when he sensed someone approaching. It would seem I would get my wish.
Oh no. Hermes thought as he saw a number of dragon newts, and a beatswoman, coming to them at high speed. Father, maybe we shouldn't pick a fight with Lord Rimmeru's people. He said, but it didn't seem to get to the older man. Guess we fight then. Yamza was panicking. Everything seemed to be going downhill faster and faster. He ignored all the idiots who were giving him reports. He didn't need them to tell him that everything was going to shit.
Sir, the 3 Beatsketeers have been confirmed to be among the attackers, one of them said.
That did it. He wasn't about to get himself killed over this. You guys buy some time. He said, I will head over back to Justov to bring Adelman. The name quickly made everyone stop talking. The White King was infamous even among the Fingers as a walking disaster, capable of raising entire armies of the dead. However, I will bring him over as fast as I can. He lied to them as he left the tent. In fact, Adelman could not leave Clayman's palace as he was bound there. And even if he could, Yamza had no intentions of going back there. Like hell. This battle is already lost, Adelman or not. Lord Clayman will execute me for failure, so I am getting the hell out of here. As he walked away from the tent, planning to teleport away when he was far enough. However, when he tried to do so the spell failed to activate. What? He panicked, it isn't working. Is there some anti-magic field nearby? He knew Mulan was capable of something like that. Did the enemy acquire the ability from her corpse? In a frenzy he ran back to the tent to round up the ones inside, but they were all petrified. Literary turned to stone. No way. Just a second ago. As he took a step back, then he heard a voice.
Where are you going? The feminine voice said mockingly. He turned to see a snake woman standing some distance away over the corpses of the lookouts. Her predatory eyes were looking at him like he was her next meal.
Shit. The Battle of Orcus did not last much longer. With the main part of the army incapacitated, its leader soon to be dead, there was no hope left for Clayman's forces. At Walpurgis, the demon lord in question was yet still unaware of just how done he was. The canyon was abuzz with violence as Clayman's army fell apart, piece by piece. The majority of it had already fallen, either incapacitated or just straight up surrendering when they saw how outmatched they were compared to Tempest. Even so, there were still plenty pockets of resistance and small engagements taking place. One such skirmish was happening in the far rear of the Majin army. What was supposed to be a field hospital had turned into a battlefield as dozens of warriors from both sides engaged in fierce combat. One side was Tempest, specifically Gabiru's winged forces and Sufia, and the other were the followers of Demon Lord Milam, the Dragon Faithful. As the battle raged on, fewer and fewer remained standing. Now, there were only 4. Gabiru and Sufia on one side, and Midray and Hermes on the other. Gah! Hermes shouted as he barely avoided another stab from Gabiru's trident. He tried to grab the handle and make the lizard lose his balance, but Gabiru was quicker and pulled back, striking him instead with a fierce kick, sending him flying backwards. Ha ha, now this is fun. Hermes billowed as he blocked all of Sufia's blows, one after the other, not looking like he had so much as started sweating. Damn it! The beast woman screamed as she lunged again, but the large man skillfully sidestepped faster than she could react, grabbed her arm and swung her away. She landed some distance away, panting. Meanwhile, as Hermes began to tire, his moves became less accurate. Eventually, Gabiru managed to seize an opening and lunged with the trident at his neck, trapping it between its blades and pushing the man into the ground. My victory! The Dragonoid yelled. Bwa ha ha. Looks like you lost, Hermes, Midray said. That Dragonoid has some moves. Stop laughing at me and help me, Hermes pleaded. Fool! Midray screamed. You lost, stay down there and reflect on your mistakes. Don't ignore me, Sufia screamed as she lunged once again at the man. However, with a swift motion he once again grabbed her and threw her away with force. This time, she didn't manage to land on her feet. Arg, damn it, she said as she got up. Despite that, she was smiling. Hey. What are you? I thought that Yamza guy was the strongest in this army. She asked confused, you're way too strong. Are you really human? Now that you mention it, Gabiru said as he stood above Hermes, there is something weird about these guys. Midray had a genuine smile. Being compared to that Yamza does not please me. He looked over at her. Despite appearances, I am quite able indeed. Enough to be a sparring partner to Lady Milam, he said with pride. The two allies had a look of shock cross their faces. Wah! Demon Lord Milam, Gabiru shouted, that means you're correct. Midray said, we are the Dragon Faithful, the followers of Demon Lord Milam. A pleasure, he said with a bow. I am Midray, the head priest himself. Oi, why are you saying that as if you're famous or something? Hermes said as he emerged from behind the other priest. Gabiru quickly looked down, dumbfounded to see him gone from where he had immobilized him earlier. As to your other query, we are not humans. No, in fact, we are much like you, sir. Midray said looking at Gabiru, who looked confused. We are Dragonoids. Unlike you, however, who evolved from lizard men, we are the descendants of dragons who took human form and mated with humans. He explained to a gobsmacked Gabiru. Yeah. Hermes shrugged, but none of us can resume that dragon form, so we are more or less indistinguishable from humans. I see. Sufia said with a contemplative look. And your strength? It comes from years of honing your bodies instead of skills and abilities? She asked more like a statement. You are sharp. Midray praised. Indeed. Most Majins tend to gauge their power based on magicule amount and skills. While that may serve as a rough estimate, real strength lies beyond what you can see with the eye. Combat proficiency is the true gauge for power. Those who do not see that cannot hope to grow beyond their limitations. That is what Lady Milam has taught us, he declared with the pride of a fanatical worshipper. Sufia stayed silent as she contemplated his words. I see. In short, it means I can become even stronger, she declared, taking another battle stance. Let us continue. I want to push myself to my limit against you, she said with determination. Gabiru followed suit. Splendidly put, miss, Midray said, also dropping into a battle stance. You have a promising future, and prepared to fight some more. Some distance away, another battle was reaching its climax. Yamza, the leader of the army, was fighting for his life against the Golden Serpent, a bliss. However, the snake Lycan was far superior to him and he barely managed to keep himself from being killed by each of her blow. Gah, what a monster. He though as they clashed swords, should expect nothing else from one of the three beastketeers. It would seem I have little choice. Desperate, he activated a magic mirror that he had strapped to his wrist. Doppelganger. The mirror shined and the light materialized into a clone of Yamza, directly behind the beastketeer, however. Nice try. Someone shouted as they smalled into the clone. Gobta and a few other goblin riders emerged from within Alba's shadow, taking formation around her. Gabiru looked behind at Albus and said, sorry. Lord Benamaru asked us to tag along. Did he now? She said as she looked in the distance to where the ogre was observing the battle. Well, thank you, Gobta, and prepared to continue. Listen up. He shouted to the other hobgoblins, we'll take on the clone. Leave the real one to Miss Albus. Move. In unison. The group of 4 riders lunged at the Yamza clone. driving it away in quick order with carefully coordinated strikes. Looking away from where Benimaru was, Albus suddenly had a dark look in her eyes. She smirked and turned towards Yamza. "Ha ha. Was that clone your ace? Pathetic." And moved faster than the Majin could react, stopping right in front of his face. Her eyes glowed a sickly yellow, and he could feel himself starting to go limp.
"No," he tried to say, but it came out very weakly.
He looked over to where his clone was, seeing that it had already been overwhelmed by the goblin riders. "I can't die like this." His thoughts were interrupted when Albus slammed her large tail into him, sending him flying into the canyon wall, cracking it in the process. However, Albus was not done with him. Holding her sword pointed at him, she unleashed her ultimate spell. A large barrage of lighting that completely engulfed the Majin as he screamed in agony. When the spell died down, he felt all strength leave his body. "Stop," he begged. The golden snake looked at the broken man with no hint of pity. "However, surrender," she said, "and I will take you prisoner and guarantee your life," she told him. Looking up with all the strength he could muster, he said, "Why? Yes. I accede. Huh." His words were interrupted when he suddenly felt his right arm begin to move. "What? How?" He noticed his hand was holding some sort of small, black orb that he did not remember having anywhere on his person. A sudden realization of horror hit him. "No. No, please no," he screamed horrified as the hand reached toward his mouth. "Please. Lord Clayman. No," he pleaded as tears ran down his face, but it did not stop. Argg. He tried to shut his mouth, but he had no strength left as the marionette magic of Clayman did its work, forcing the orb down his throat. Albus watched the scene unfold with morbid fascination. When she heard the Majin utter Clayman's name, she realized what was happening. "Stand back," she shouted to the goblin riders just as Yamza's body began to convulse violently and then began bloating up. A dark mist suddenly exploded outwards and began to reform itself into a massive shape.
"Oh no," she muttered as she looked upon the shape of this monster, Charybdis, and watched as it began floating upwards into the night sky. The emergence of the monster drew the attention of everyone on the battlefield. Midrake could feel a foreboding aura suddenly emerge where Yamza had previously been. "Wait," he shouted to the others, interrupting the fight they were having. "Let's call a temporary truce." He looked over into the distance. "I sense something terrible," he asked when he saw the other priests stare at where Yamza was with his dragon. "It seems Yamza has somehow turned into that monster Charybdis," he said. "What? That thing that possessed Phobio?" Sufia asked in a panic. "But though Lady Milam destroyed it." He looked at Gabiru, who was equally confused. "I don't think it's the genuine thing," Hermes said, taking a look with his own eyes. "It looks much weaker, like a cheap copy or something. Even so, it looks pretty dangerous." "Whatever the case, we must cease our fight and work together if we are to survive," Midray declared. "Dragon faithful," he said as he looked over at his fallen comrades, "heal yourself and our Tempest friends, and prepare to fight. Arm yourself if need be." He turned to Sufia and Gabiru. "It seems we are no longer enemies."
"What the hell?" He heard Hermes shout and looked at what got him so riled up, and felt his jaw hit the ground. The great beast rose up into the air, menacingly looking straight at Albus.
"Shit," she though as she tried to attack it with her lighting, but it didn't so much as scratch it. "No good.
Its regeneration is too powerful. At this rate." The monster lunged at her with one of its many tentacles, aiming to skewer her. "I'm done for." She prepared to die. But today was not her day. Suddenly, Benimaru appeared out of nowhere and cut the tentacle into several pieces. A black flame engulfed the stump, preventing it from regenerating. She looked gobsmacked as Benimaru grinned like a madman and looked at the monster as if it was a mere inconvenience. "Sorry, but I have a tight schedule. Mind if you die?" he asked the monster, who billowed a beastly screech at him. Taking that as a no, Benimaru ended it then and there. Out of nowhere, a massive dome of black flame engulfed the wannabe Charybdis. Within seconds, the inferno died down. All that was left of the thing were ashes.
"It's almost over," he said as he turned to look at her. "Just one more left," and vanished in a blur. She simply stood there, mind not fully capable of comprehending what happened.
The two dragon faithful looked on into the distance with their dragon eyes, completely gobsmacked. Hermes looked over at Midray, seeing him grin dangerously. He sighed, knowing that look. "What's going on?" Sophia asked. "Is it coming this way?"
No," Hermes said as he turned to her. "It seems he got wiped out almost immediately."
"What?" she asked, confused. "It seems it was indeed but a copy." Midray added, "But still. No normal Majin could defeat it so easily. Any who could would easily be disaster class." He thought to himself. Then, he felt a presence approaching. He smiled as he watched a tall, red-haired ogre appear out of nowhere. A sword casually rested on his shoulder.
"Hey," Benimaru said to him with a smile as they locked eyes. "Thanks for keeping my friends company." Whatever he wanted to say next was quickly drowned out by confusion. He took one look at the dragon faithful walking to and fro the various wounded, healing them. "What's going on here?" he asked.
Sir Benimaru." Gabiru came over to him quickly. "Sir, these people are the dragon faithful. Lady Milam's followers," he informed him. "What?" he asked, shocked. "I see." He looked over to Midray, who was obviously the strongest around, and who was watching him back intently. "Are you their leader?" he asked the tall man. "Yes, I am known as Midray," the bald man answered. "Clayman's forces are done for," he informed. "I don't know the details of why you are here. But do you still intend to fight us?" he asked. He saw the other, smaller faithful next to Midray vigorously shake his head. Then, Midray smiled. If you were asking if I want to continue this pointless war, then no." Hermes breathed a sigh of relief. "But I still want to keep fighting. You specifically," he said, smile growing wider. Hermes began to panic. I see," Benimaru said with a smile of his own. "Then it seems we are of the same mind." And now it was Gabiru's turn to panic. "Whoa, that would be bad," Sophia said, although she was smiling as well, looking eager to see them fight. "Sir Benimaru, wait." Gabiru quickly tried to jump in and stop the ogre. "This would be really bad. What if Lady Milam hears of this? She'd either get mad and destroy something or worse. She'd want to join in too," he said with a mortified look. "Father, wait." Hermes jumped in too. "You absolutely can't. This man is Sir Rimmeru's subordinate. If Lady Milam finds out," he said as he imagined horror of a mad Milam. Yes, I know," Benimaru told Gabiru, though he sounded disappointed. You're such a worrywart, Hermes," Midray muttered. "I know better." "Yes, better not," Benimaru said as the two men locked eyes. "If we did, I'd have to go for the kill for sure. Else I definitely lose." Perhaps," Midray retorted, "though I don't think I could endure that attack which obliterated that Charybdis," he said, "but I am confident I beat you before you could use it." "Is that so?" Benimaru asked. "Would you two quit it?" Gabiru and Hermes shouted at them in unison, exasperated. Yes, Midray said as he dismissed the two. "We have no qualms with Tempest. In fact," he stopped right in front of the ogre with a friendly smile. "I would say we are natural allies, since our leaders are close friends," he said as he offered a hand to Benimaru, who smiled and shook it. Gabiru and Hermes sighed in relief. "We offer our undivided assistance and cooperation, Sir Benimaru," the head priest said, bowing his head slightly. "I graciously accept. Now, let's wrap this up, shall we?" he said as he looked over the canyon. "With this over, all that is left is for our masters to end things with Clayman." He grinned. "Wish I could see that spectacle." About an hour had passed since the start of Walpurgis, and Rimuru could already feel his patience begin to stretch thin. He expected the marionette master to come up with some lies and exaggerations, but the tale he had crafted for the meeting was something else. Something else and stupid, that is. According to Clayman, after the whole Orc Lord affair failed, Carrion had seized the opportunity to approach the leader of Tempest, that is, Rimuru, about becoming a demon lord. Tempted by the promise of power, Rimuru then conspired to release Veldora from his seal to reap the souls he would need to ascend, choosing the kingdom of Falmouth as the sacrifice. Successfully baiting the kingdom to attack Tempest, the two armies met near where Veldora was sealed, and the bloodshed allowed him to awaken, destroying the invading army and allowing Rimuru to harvest all the souls he would need. However, when he found that the number of demon lords allowed was limited,
The two then conspired to have Clayman killed so that Rimuru could take his place. What a load of hooey. Rimuru though as he watched the overdramatic demon lord trying to sell his story to the council. In all honesty, it didn't look like most of them were paying much attention, but if he convinced even half of them and if that half happened to include the stronger ones he would have some trouble. Finally, Clayman concluded his tale, saying that he had found out about the plan through his faithful subordinate, Majulan, who in the process of relaying the information lost her life to Rimuru. Next, when she heard of Carrion's plot, Milam got angry on Clayman's behalf. Rimuru nearly had to barf at that image and thus attacked Urizania.
And that is how we reach the current meeting, Clayman said as he ended his speech. That savage over there, he shouted, pointing at a bored-looking Rimuru, is the root cause of all of this, he must be. However, he was interrupted when de Gruel spoke up. Clayman, setting aside the validity of everything you presented. The giant said in an even tone, why are we interrogating this young Majin and not Carrion, the supposed true mastermind? He asked, seemingly unconvinced. That cannot be done, I'm afraid, Clayman said, faking sadness. He died fighting Milam in Urizania. Which is why I asked this meeting. Though she acted in consideration for me, the non-aggression pact we have is still in effect. She is in a tricky position until we have more conclusive evidence for Carrion's actions. Which is why I have sent my men to Urizania to investigate, he informed the room. Isn't that just an invasion? Ramirez asked, bored. Whatever you may call it. He dismissed her question. I hope we can wait on punishing Milam until my men have the needed evidence. Until then, he said, trying to mask his smile, I was hoping we could punish Carrion's co-conspirator. This impudent slime who dares call himself a demon lord, he said looking at Rimuru. The room was silent for a few moments as Clayman concluded his case. Well then. Guy spoke up, sounding just as bored, let us hear from our guest. Anything to say? He asked the slime, who nodded and stood up. Clayman, huh? He asked, looking at the dead man. You are a goddamn liar, he declared. What did you say? Clayman asked with anger. Rimuru suppressed a smirk as he began dismantling the bastard's lie. First of all, Mulan is alive. He casually said, just wanted you to know that. I took out your fake heart and gave her freedom back. He informed. I can present evidence on that. He took the shattered fake heart he had extracted out of his storage space and threw it onto the table. He quite enjoyed the brief look of confusion on Clayman's face as he recognized it. That's the fake heart, he said with a smirk as he saw many around the table eye the heart and then Clayman with some suspicion. He continued, I had no interest in the status of Demon Lord. Certainly not if Carrion suggested it. He doesn't seem like the scheming type, anyways. Clayman quickly butted in, and who would believe such a flimsy excuse? He asked with a smug smile, all you have done so far is only because you had Veldora at your side, he accused. No, that's not true, he said, looking around the room. It's true I used his name and influence a bit, but I had his approval, as he is my friend. He explained. Everyone in the room seemed surprised at hearing that, especially Clayman. Besides, you want to talk about flimsy? Everything you have rests solely on your subordinate, Mulan's, testimony, who you claimed to conveniently be dead. I could bring her here to testify, he suggested, though it would not favor you at all. Ha, Clayman laughed, bring her here? Let me guess. You used some spirit to posses her corpse? He asked. Huh? Posses her corpse? Rimuru asked in disgust. Your kind of sleazebags, who treat people like tools to be discarded, really do think differently. Trash, he accused. Everyone, how much longer are we going to let this mere slime run his mouth? He shouted as he looked around the room. Though no one seemed to care, he must be punished for trying to become a demon lord. Enough. Rimuru had completely ran out of patience. Not wanting to hear anything more, he kicked the chair he was sitting on towards Clayman, barely missing his head by inches. The chair went on and shattered against the wall behind. Clayman looked over at Rimuru as he let out a menacing aura, marching closer to him. Enough of this charade. The slime declared, eyes filled with a cold rage. Like I said, I don't give or didn't give a damn about becoming a demon lord. All I wanted was to make a safe, prosperous nation where I could live a leisurely life. Where me and my friends and he stopped to give a quick glance in the direction of Milam. Where we could be happy and everyone smiles. A place where monsters, humans and whatever else could work together, as ridiculous as it sounds. He laid his feelings bare. Anyone who gets in the way of that, be it humans, the Holy Church or even demon lords, are my enemy. Just like you bastard. He concluded as he stopped right in the demon lord's face. I'm sure you hate me too, for ruining your plan with Falmouth. This is something between just the two of us, he said as he looked up at the dead man. Interesting, he heard Guy speak up. He looked at the demon, whose face betrayed no actual emotion. You said you didn't give a damn about becoming a demon lord, but do you intend to become a demon lord now? He asked. Yes. Rimuru declared, it was necessary, and I am already one as far as the humans are concerned. The Lord of Darkness smiled wickedly. Very well. We have all the witnesses needed here. If you can beat Clayman in front of us, we will accept your assuming the title of demon lord, he finished. Rimuru smiled back, keeping it simple. Much oblige. I accept, so let's do this, you bastard, he said to Clayman. You attacked my city, hurt my comrades. You even had the packing audacity to hit Milam right in front of me. Your death will be a slow one, he declared with venom, not caring that he was probably giving away how he felt about the Dragonoid. He looked over at her from the corner of his eyes. Just sit tight, Milam. Whatever Clayman did, I am going to free you, he wanted to say, though he managed to keep it as just a though. He could almost swear that she had a faint blush on her face, but he ignored it as just his imagination playing tricks on him. It would be far too cliché even for him to believe. Of course, it was not. Hearing Rimuru declare how he was especially angry at Clayman for hitting her, Milam's mind began to have a meltdown. Wah. Wah. What the heck are you saying out loud, idiot? She though, feeling heat raise up to her face. This time, she was sure it was visible. Oh no. Calm down, keep it cool. Gotta keep it cool. With some effort, she managed to suppress the blush away. Just in time too, because the others in the room started looking at her after hearing Rimuru's declaration, some with far too questioning eyes. Rimuru, oblivious to Milam's woes, prepared to start the battle. First, he placed his hand on the round table and, with a puff of black smoke, it vanished. Now we have a place to fight, so let's get started, he told Clayman, who backed away slightly under as Rimuru's aura continued to increase in intensity. Guy looked at the slime, a magnificent aura. Clayman does not seem to quite understand exactly how outmatched he is. He grinned in expectation. The other demon lord's reaction was somewhat less enthusiastic, especially Dino, who fell onto the floor when the support table went away. Ramirez was shouting encouragements at Rimuru, while Leon, Valentine and de Gruel just stared on with no particular emotion. The weak are unfit to call themselves demon lords. So, Clayman, Guy thought. Clayman. He called out to the dead man, since you two are a demon lord, why not prove to us you can beat this guy with your own strength? Clayman didn't seem to like what he heard. The dead man looked from Guy to Rimuru and chuckled slightly. Kuhu. Very well. Although, I hate dirtying my own hands. Milam, this is an order, he shouted at the Dragonoid. Kill him, he ordered. Everyone in the room froze when they heard that. Even Dino had to wake up and look at the girl, who slowly stood up from her chair, fate still expressionless. In a blur faster than most in the room could follow, she vanished and appeared right above Rimuru, swinging downwards to hit him with a fist. Though he sensed her, Rimuru barely had time to dodge out of the way. She collided with the floor, cratering it. Rimuru landed some distance away, face contorted with anger. You trash, he said through gritted teeth. Even now, you won't face me yourself, he accused, but Clayman looked unimpressed. Why would I? He dismissed. Milam is here of her own will, so why should I not use her to my advantage? He asked with an evil smile. He looked at Guy. Any problem with that? Not at all, the demon answered. If she's fighting because she wants to, I have no objections. Rimuru was pissed, even more so than before. He looked at Milam as she was staring him down, looking a bit happy herself. He wondered if it was because of the brainwashing, but put it aside for the moment and got ready to fight. Milam, I really don't want to fight you. But it seems I have no choice, so. He took a step forward. I don't know what that bastard did to get to you, but, he said as he clenched his fists, I am going to undo it, whatever it takes. Okay. So? Just hang in there. he declared, ignoring the stares of everyone in the room, especially Guy whose grin just grew even wider.
Enough of your blabbering, Clayman shouted with a mad look in his eyes, you're going to die in despair. Oh, right, Rimuru said looking at Clayman as if he nearly forgot he existed, the one who's gonna die is you, Clayman. Since I can't right now, you'll have to settle for someone else. Xian, on cue, the ogress jumped at Clayman and delivered a dozen blows within barely a second. The dead man collapsed on the ground as the pain caught up with him, screaming in agony.
That was for laying your filthy hands on Lady Milam, scum, she said as she looked down at him as if he were less than trash. Rimuru looked at her somewhat irritated, at least wait until I give the order. Though he was happy to hear he wasn't the only one who was angry at Clayman's bull. Why, you insolent bitch, Clayman bellowed as he tried to stand up, covered in blood and bruises. However, his high-speed regeneration quickly kicked in and he began to heal. Suddenly, the little fox that he had been carrying when he arrived stepped forward. It began to grow in size until it was nearly the size of Ranga. Then, a summoning circle appeared beside the demon lord from which a cloaked puppet emerged. I will kill all of you. Finally getting serious, then? Rimuru asked as he saw Milam prepare to attack again. He got into a fighting stance and turned to look at Xian and Ranga. Ranga, you handle the fox. Xian, be careful. As for me. He turned and prepared to meet Milam head-on with everything he had. She vanished in a blur, appearing right beside him, trying to kick him. Again, he barely managed to avoid the attack and the floor below where he stood shattered into pieces, sending a fierce shockwave across the room. Wah! Dino screamed from where he had been laying on the ground. Yo, Guy. He said as he picked himself up, they're gonna destroy this place if this keeps up. Ah yes, that won't do. Guy said as he looked on. He snapped his fingers and the room was filled with a strange magic. A barrier formed at the center where the combatants stood. Then the room appeared to suddenly spear to grow in size. Before he could blink, Rimuru saw that the small space they were in was now about the size of an arena. The chairs and the spectator demon lords far in the distance. What the hell happened? As he looked in bewilderment. Notice. Spatial manipulation detected. Raphael reported a strong barrier has also been erected around this new space. Breaking it from this side is impossible, she said. I see. His thoughts were interrupted as Milam jumped into the air and tried to deliver a falling kick. He managed to get out of the way, only to find himself once again on the receiving end of Milam's fists, which she began infusing with a high-density aura. Though he managed to dodge the series of punches, he could feel the intense aura still causing damage to his body. He quickly realized, much like he had suspected, that for all his boost in power since becoming a demon lord he was nowhere near Milam's level. Another grazing blow tore his jacket to ribbons, and if he had not used his own aura to deflect most of the energy away, he was certain it could have tore his limb off. This is really bad. As he continued to move, putting everything he had in his speed to survive. Truth is, all I can do is buy some time. Raphael, I'm counting on you to find whatever Clayman did. Try to hurry, he told the ultimate skill, preparing to dodge more of Milam's assaults. Meanwhile, on the outside of the barrier, Ramirez was panicking. Isn't this really unfair? She screamed at Guy. Clayman has them outnumbered. That's really bad. Hey Guy, she said, drawing his attention. I'm siding with Rimuru, so let my Beretta. No, Guy dismissed. Why not? Ramirez shouted, displeased. This fight is between Clayman and that slime. You don't have a reason to join, he told her. Wah. But you let Milam join in. The fairy pouted, but Guy didn't care. It's fine since it's her. The demon simply said, making Ramirez even angrier. Wada ya mean, since it's her? She shouted, why her and not me? The demon had to sigh in annoyance, because she must have her own reasons. Besides, who will join in? That dryad seems fully committed to protecting you and the other one, he said, eyeing Beretta. Who is he loyal to? He asked. From what I can tell, it's a demon incarnated into that puppet, but you are not its summoner. He told the fairy. It was that slime, wasn't it? It wasn't a question. Ramirez looked like a kid caught with their hand in the candy jar. I can't have a servant that is loyal to demon lords. It is true. Beretta suddenly said, there are two individuals whom I consider my masters. Ramirez, whom I am sworn to protect, and my summoner, Sir Rimuru. Guy eyes the demon and decided to be frank. This fairy is an old friend of mine. I cannot allow a servant of hers to waver between masters. I have to ask you to choose right now. Who is your one and only master? The demon looked hesitant, but only for a moment. I pledge my loyalty to Lady Ramirez, he said. Ramirez suddenly had a look of a child on Christmas. I have grown quite fond of her, and it is her wish to assist Sir Rimuru. So, please allow me to be of use to Sir Rimuru just this one time, he pleaded. Guy was silent for a moment. Ah, I see, because your master wishes so, huh? I told you, Ramirez spoke up again. We're all friends, after all, she declared. Very well, Guy said with a sigh. I will make an opening in the barrier. Go in and do as you please. With a wave of his hands, a small door-size opening appeared in the barrier's translucent wall. You have my gratitude, Rouge, Beretta said with a polite bow. No need to call me that, Guy said as Beretta turned to enter the combat area. You may call me Guy. He looked as the demon puppet prepared to go the opening. Interesting. Demons tend to seek out masters they consider strong, but Beretta seems to value something else. Just like him, his thoughts were interrupted by a screaming Ramirez, who out of nowhere had pulled out some pom-poms and began cheering Beretta on. Wait, he called, stopping Beretta from going in. What color are you? Beretta turned to look at him. Ah, there are not many of my color. He doesn't like to create too many descendants, he said, then ducked through the opening and joined the fight. I see. Guy though with a wicked smile. Are you on the move too, Noir? The battle inside the barrier had turned into a chaotic melee, with Xian fighting off Clayman's puppet while Ranga and the fox clashed in a beastly exchange. Beretta joined in, taking the opportunity to clash against the puppet. Though a bit confused, Xian smiled and turned to face down Clayman himself. Meanwhile, Rimuru was horrified out of his mind. This is terrifying. He though is the massive wall of magicules that was Milam's fist flew inches from his face. The sheer force of it was enough to vaporize the air and cause extreme heat that by itself could kill a lesser Majin. This is really terrifying. He ducked under another blow and tried to kick her legs out, but she was already gone by then, high in the air and diving for him. He pushed himself out of the way, feeling his coat singe. I knew her power was terrifying, but this is beyond ridiculous. Just surviving is taking absolutely everything I have. He could already feel his body screaming at him to take a break. Though slime didn't got tired per se, the huge amount of magicules he was pushing through it to force himself to move fast enough to not get turned into a stain on the floor meant he could not keep it up forever. The floor around them looked like it had been carpet bombed, and he seriously hoped she would not bring out something even more terrifying. Report. Analysis of Demon Lord Milam is completed. Raphael announced, bringing a light of hope. Oh thank God. Rimuru thought in relief. Were you able to dispel the magic? Negative. No curses or other mind-controlling magic were detected, Raphael said. Are you kidding me? Rimuru shouted as he ducked to avoid another huge attack that tore the floor to dust. Clayman. Is he using magic that even Raphael can't detect? He's stronger than I thought, he concluded. That is incorrect. Raphael quickly interjected. There are traces of domination magic on the necklace around her neck, however its effects is not. Necklace? Ah, I see it. He though as he noticed a pendant hanging from her neck, so that's how he's controlling her. He began formulating a plan to take it off. No, that is not. Raphael tried to correct his interpretation of her data, but Rimuru was too focused on saving Milam to listen. The skill side. Milam lunged once again, this time shooting her aura from her fist like a bullet. Panicked, Rimuru used Beelzebub to absorb it, noticing too late that Milam had taken the opportunity to move behind him faster than he could blink. Her next attack sent him flying across the arena, but he managed to land on his feet. Crap, this is no good. He looked to see Milam prepare for another strike. Her power is just too great. I have no hope of getting close enough to grab that pendant. Milam was again upon him, but he noticed something, an opening in her defenses. Maybe, he tried to dodge and put himself in a position to get closer, but just as he did so Milam's entire body changed angle, face inches from his, a trap. He screamed in a panic as Milam grabbed his arm and threw him like a pebble across the battlefield. He slammed into the barrier, hard. He thanked his lucky stars he had pain nullification, but things were looking grim. Not just power but incredible battle acumen too.
Yeah, I have no chance of getting that pendant. My only hope is getting to Clayman.
His thoughts were interrupted as Milam flew at him at extremely high speeds. Though he could see it thanks to increased perception, he realized that even at his best he would not be able to avoid this strike. Yikes! He mentally prepared himself to be squished. However, the fist collided with something that appeared out of nowhere right in front of him. The collision sent out a shockwave that rattled even the barrier, though it held. Rimuru stared at the thing that stopped the attack, dumb-smacked. Wah. Milam too seemed confused at what happened. Arggggg. Veldora raged in pain as he held his head, tears in his eyes. That huuuuuurrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrr some distance away. Veldora had taken the hit to the back of his head, which was now steaming as it healed. "Way! Veldora? Why are you here?" Rimuru screamed at the human-form dragon. "Notice. The ability to summon Storm Dragon Veldora has been used." Raphael notified him. "Did you use it?" he asked her. "Negative. I will not utilize any ability without Master's consent," she answered. Hearing that, he looked suspicious at Veldora. "Hey, you. Did you freaking summon yourself here?" he asked. "What the hell for?" Taking his accusing gaze from Milim, Veldora turned to him and began crying. "Rimuru, isn't it a little mean of you to talk to me like that after the way you treated me?" he said as he got right up in his face. Before Rimuru could ask what the hell he meant, the dragon rummaged through his pants pockets and pulled out a manga. The cover doesn't match what's inside at all. I was looking forward to reading this volume, and you, he cried and moaned, tricked me. "Ah, right, I did think that would be a funny prank." Rimuru though as he remembered. Then he had an idea. "Hey, before I give you the right volume, since you are here, could you deal with Milim for me for a little while?" he asked. The dragon looked at him, then turned to look at Milim. "Ah, I see," he said with a smirk. She was staring at him with a slightly annoyed expression. "HMPH, leave it to me," he said and got in a battle stance. "She's just being controlled, so don't get too crazy," Rimuru said as he took off to deal with Clayman. "Yeah, sir, wait." Veldora tried to tell him, but he was already gone. "She isn't, whatever." He gave up, and turned to face Milim again. Hee, nice to meet ya, Milim. "I'm Veldora, as you probably guessed. Hee, not gonna lie. I was hoping to face you one day. Have it. He screamed as he lunged at her. "Come at me with all you have. I'll show you all the techniques I learned from the holy scriptures, the manga I read." Milim was kinda confused when the dragon first appeared. She could tell who he was just by his aura, and based on the story she heard it didn't surprise her as much as it did others in the room. She especially, though the look of utter annoyance on a certain vampire's face was priceless. Even so, she quickly got a bit annoyed. Hey, this guy is way too buddy with my Rimuru. She though, suppressing the urge to pout. "But, whoa, is he powerful? I really wanna fight him now." Suffice to say, she was beyond delighted when Rimuru suggested the very same thing and the dragon turned to face her. Ha. "Yes, thanks Rimuru. You really know how to read a girl's heart, huh? Let's go." And prepared to meet him lunge head on. And so the clash between two of the world's strongest beings began.